Welcome to the stage, Grace Jun.
Thank you. Which button? This. All right. Hi. Thank you for having me here, Reshape and 3D Industry. As you've seen, many of the speakers today were really innovative in cutting-edge technology, fabrication, and even making your own recipe for fabrics. But I think it's appropriate that I end up closing off this segment and this talk with contextualization, and particularly how we look at the human experience and things that are human-centered. So at the intersection of technology and fashion, we look at how does human practice and related to aging, disability, and injury are being applied as well as looked at when it comes to materiality and new technologies that come out. So again, my name is Grace, and I am the Executive Director at OpenStyle Lab. And at OpenStyle Lab, we predominantly work with a couple of domains and communities in Massachusetts, as well as in New York City. Some of our partners have been the Paralyzed Veterans of America, Polar Tech, as well as the United Spinal Association, a couple of hospitals and healthcare. And over the past 4 years, we've looked at 60 different types of design solutions that have ranged from people who have spinal cord injury to cerebral palsy to autism. And so today, I'm trying to alleviate and emphasize on making style accessible to people of all abilities. I think you've seen with all the speakers here that education is a fundamental tool to look at how do we make things accessible. The 3 ways that we at our company look at the future of health is predominantly first, increase awareness, and therefore being in places like today. We also present at the Museum of Science tomorrow, the day after tomorrow in Boston, as well as the MIT Museum and a couple of other exhibitions throughout the United States. Second, we equipped our communities with the skills to make accessible clothing and technologies. And finally, third, we distribute our knowledge online or through conferences and exhibitions. So let me just begin with why this is really important. So even after more than 25 years of the Disabilities Act, still clothing, the very fabric on our bodies, is not accessible to people with various injuries or range of motion and limited dexterity. So if I am here today for my work outfit and I can't get my button dress on in less than 30 minutes, is it because I have paralysis that is the fault, or is it simply the design of the shirt that really needs reinvention? Is kind of the argument here for healthcare, design, and tech. So at OpenStyle Lab, we see disability as part of the human life cycle, and we see it at any time. We have a growing population, and more importantly, we have a generation that is looking at different types of life cycles and health, whether you might call them millennials or people in their early 20s. But regardless, one of us is more than less prone to injury, whether through it's either getting on an accident or going through sports racing or even having a difficult surgery. So at OpenStyle Lab, we do this in a very interesting way. We have a 10-week summer intensive research program that we had started initially at MIT as a public service project, and currently we are operating in New York City at Parsons in partnership. So during these 10 weeks, we team a designer, an engineer, and an occupational or physical therapist with one person that has a disability. And we co-create to make wearable technologies, clothing that is accessible, and other types of boundaries between both areas and domains. So this was a picture of our summer team during that event. We had clients, like I said, anywhere from spinal cord injury to muscular dystrophy, to having fellows and students that came from a broad range of schools, from Tufts University to MIT to Parsons to FIT to all over the nation, even SCAD. So we bring in a multidisciplinary team to have creative research, and the ways we do this is by initiating sharing knowledge. So everyone has their own definition of what is user-centric. Is it client-based? Is it for therapy? Is it the patient? That vocabulary is immediately dispersed the first few weeks, and we start prototyping. So a few times, maybe about 5 times, we prototype throughout the 5 weeks, and then we have a final product at the end. That's a consecutive iteration of more than 25 ideas that come out from the summer. So after we prototype for each of the rounds, we also do fitting and testing. This is where some of the technologies that we looked at, body scanning, rhino, even photogrammetry, as well as looking at different ways to pattern make and how that fits to the body is some of the technologies we looked at. And then finally, we engage with the community to raise awareness at a public venue. Lastly, this was a shot from the MIT Open Style Lab summer program last year. This summer, we had it at Parsons School of Design in New York City, and you can see some of our online videos. But most of all, I wanted to kind of touch about technology in our process. We work with a couple of sponsors and partners. In particular, this one was with Woolmark Company. And we looked at how do upcycling materials and the technical coating of fabrics in wool that have breathable properties as well as ventilation provide support for someone who has spinal cord injury. So this is Jim. Jim is director at Wellesley College, and he has a T3 spinal cord injury that has left him with some paralysis and very limited motor functions. But most importantly, if you have a high level of spinal cord injury, your body tends to fluctuate in temperature. Therefore, when it is summer in New York City or in Boston and it's really hot, how do you, if you have limited dexterity, have control over the things that you wear without trying to ask someone else for help to take off? So the team had looked into laser cutting different types of wool fabrics, as well as looking at how just simple apparel design and pattern making help support Jim through ventilation. Second, we have another project in the past based on Mia. Mia had neurological chronic pain due to a nasal surgery. She was also an MIT grad, an expert canoe artist, and she herself was brilliant enough to make her own masks. So pretty much when she had her surgery around her nose area, it had left her with chronic pain, which meant if you went to Whole Foods or any consumer store and there's a lot of air conditioning coming out, it would constantly feel like a pine of needles pricking against your face. So she made herself felt masks to cover her face to protect herself, but the people at the store had told her to leave simply because they thought she was a burglar. So this is where I think fashion and aesthetics as well as design really come into play. And throughout our team, we decided to look at silicone injection molding, as well as looking at kind of an Internet of Things to look at how can we make a mask that is not like Minority Report for Tom Cruise, but also provides aesthetics as well as interest for someone who looks at her and asks her questions rather than tell her to go away. And finally, looking at heating wire, which is kind of a nithanol-based, to give her the heating that she needs for support and comfort. So this is the second example of some of our work. Lastly, we've done global workshops. One was in Slovenia. It was funded by the United Nations in 2015. And we worked with a group of engineers, designers, prosthetic artists from all over the world in a one-week intense workshop. So we condensed our 10-week program into just 1 week in Slovenia. And one of the unique projects, again, that came out from this was Silvo. Silvo had a motorcycle accident, which left him with paralysis. And so we looked into how to make a garment that provides heating, so a heated bomber jacket. Some of the issues with, I think you know, wearable technologies or fashion and tech merging with electronics is battery, right? So we found out a way how to integrate the battery into his wheelchair to support for that heat. And we looked at looking at different types of wires to be placed in the fabrics and therefore providing him enough circulation. And on top of that, we decided to go beyond and make him an app so he could adjust the heating. So that was one of the examples. Secondly, I think nicely had mentioned that I am from Parsons School of Design. So I teach this model and this educational program as a class twice a year. So I teach during the fall and during the spring at Parsons with students that are from product, engineering, sculpture, fine arts, and they even have a master's in design and technology, where they team with some of my friends who actually have either disability or, as my friend Doug would say, Grace, I don't have a disability, it's just called aging, and I have bone cancer, but I'd like to partake in your class and your program. So we do this for 15 weeks every fall and spring semester, and we work together to finding more wearable solutions each year. So thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed today's speaking panel, and I'm more than open to any questions. Please reach me at hello@openstylelab.org, and our website is www.openstylelab.com. Thank you.
Very good. Very good.
Thank you.
Well, now we're going to set up the stage.